Hi there, it's Tuesday the 23rd of June 2020. We're continuing this week to look at how to interpret dreams. And yesterday we saw that dreaming is a gift from God. And He's given us it for two reasons. First of all, it allows our subconscious to speak to us. During our waking hours, our conscious mind is the one that is acting and making decisions, and our subconscious, our conscience, our inner voice is there sometimes trying to speak to us and help us and guide us, and sometimes we listen to it and sometimes we don't. And when we don't, then at night time when we are sleeping and our conscious mind is switched off, it gives our subconscious mind the opportunity to speak to us, and it speaks to us through dreams, through pictures and images that we have in our mind. The second reason God gives us dreams is so that He can speak to us through our subconscious mind. So it's not just our own inner self wanting to talk to us, but sometimes God Himself wants to speak to us through our dreams. How many dreams are in the Bible, do you think? Well, there are 21 different dreams in the Bible. 10 in the book of Genesis, 3 in Daniel, 1 in Judges, 1 in Kings, and 6 in the book of Matthew. There's a difference between a dream and a vision, of course. A dream is when you're asleep, and a vision is when you're awake. And daydreaming is simply a vision. It's simply seeing these images and pictures in your mind, again, that God wants to speak to you through when you're awake. Now, how can we interpret our dreams? Well, there are two great dreamers in the Bible, Joseph and Daniel. Joseph, when he spoke to Pharaoh, who had a dream and was asking for an interpretation, says, "Do not all interpretations come from God?" Joseph could only interpret dreams as God gave him the understanding. So God is the one who reveals the interpretation of dreams. And Daniel, he also backed this up as he spoke to King Nebuchadnezzar, who had also had a dream and was looking to Daniel to interpret. And he says to him, "No wise man, enchanter, magician or diviner can explain to the king the mystery he is asked about, but there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries. He has shown King Nebuchadnezzar what will happen in days to come. Your dream and the visions that pass through your mind as you lay on your bed are these." And he goes on to tell King Nebuchadnezzar what he had dreamt about and the interpretation. But again, it comes from God. So all interpretation of dreams comes from God, who is the interpreter of dreams. Now, very interestingly, if you go online and look at WikiHow website, which is a great website that carries information about all kinds of different things, if you type in how to interpret dreams from a biblical perspective, WikiHow gives you a great outline and some tips there, and I really recommend, if you're interested in this, that you look at that. But isn't it interesting that a non-Christian website, WikiHow, is actually acknowledging even through that about the connection between dream interpretation and the Bible and God, because God is the interpreter of dreams. Now, what can we learn from the Bible about interpretation of dreams? Well, let's look in a few dreams then. First of all, the first dream in the Bible was given to King Abimelech. So Abraham and his wife Sarah were passing through King Abimelech's territory. Abraham had tried to say to the king that Sarah, who was a very good-looking woman, wasn't his wife but his sister, so that she might be protected, and yet the king still took Sarah into his harem, and God spoke to the king and said, "Don't touch her, she's somebody else's wife." So God was speaking directly to the king about his present circumstance, and God can do that. God can speak to us directly through a dream. Sometimes you might even hear a voice in your dream, and it is God speaking to you about your present circumstance. The second dream in the Bible listed is the one which Jacob had when he was running away from his brother Esau. He was sleeping out under the stars, put a stone down for a pillow, and God spoke to him through a dream, showed him a vision of a ladder connecting heaven and earth and angels going up and down, saying to Jacob through the dream that there is connection between heaven and earth, that God is very well aware of what's happening on earth, and that he is going to restore. He says to Jacob through the dream, he's going to restore him back to his land again, and he's going to make him into a great nation. So God speaks to Jacob through that dream about his future. God can speak to us about our present, and he can speak to us about our future, and he can also speak to us about our past, because later in his life, God speaks to Jacob through another dream and shows him about something that has already taken place. Jacob was serving one of his relatives, Laban, who was a very tricky customer, and Laban said, "Look after my flocks of goats and sheep." And you can take any speckled ones for yourself, thinking that there wouldn't be very many. But what turned out was that the whole flock became speckled, and so Jacob ended up getting all of his flock because God wanted to bless him. But what Jacob hadn't realised was what had happened and why that had happened. And God showed him in the dream. He actually showed him the speckled male goats mating with all the unspeckled female goats, producing speckled offspring. And God showed him what he had been up to in the dream. So God can speak to you in your dreams about your present, about your future, and about your past. And we're going to learn some more about how to interpret our dreams tomorrow. So speak to you then.